Humans weren't meant to outscore galactic warlords on their own trials. 12 civilizations gathered at the Dominion's hovering citadel, each empire sending its sharpest candidates to endure the Overseer's final judgment. For ages it had been the ultimate standard, a crucible that crowned the true heirs of galactic supremacy. Never before had a human stood in that light. Until today. Her name was Carrera Dent, a captain who had endured asteroid raids, frozen stations, and collapsing colonies. The Overseers cautioned her before she stepped into the blazing circle. Human, this test is not for you. Leave and preserve what scraps remain of your species. She only smirked, rolling her shoulders, her armor scarred from too many wars to name. I've always enjoyed impossible things. The first trial flared into being. Entire continents unfolded in miniature holograms of alien frontlines that had shattered legions. Fleets tore apart. Strongholds sank into oceans of fire while warship wrecks drifted quiet. The Overseers demanded she select one battleground, enter it, and prove her worth. She didn't pause. She pointed at the Dominion core siege where 12 alien factions had failed to breach a single wall. Drop me there, Carrera. I'll show you how humans handle sieges. Her body dissolved into light and reformed at the base of a black citadel rising into ash-filled clouds. For decades, alien champions had been slain here by tireless cannons. Carrera moved alone. Above, turrets followed her. Plasma beams rained down. She sprinted, helmet marking angles in her vision. Unlike others who charged blindly, she studied the ground. Energy conduits snaked beneath the dirt. Aliens thought grand. They hurled armies. Carrera thought mull. She pulled a spanner and jammed it into the conduit. Sparks exploded. Turrets faltered, choked. Overseers in the citadel leaned forward, mandibles twitching. A lone human unraveling what entire armies couldn't breach shattered. All predictions. Sirens wailed. Additional guns unfolded, guardians dropping from steel walls. Carrera laughed, unslinging a coil gun patched from scrap. She didn't fire center mass. She struck joints, weak seams. Aliens ignored. Machine after machine toppled. Carrera hit another conduit fortress. Lights dimming like a dying beast. Walls split, releasing warriors in shimmering armor, blades sharper than steel shields bending projectiles. Carrera holstered her gun and drew a weathered crowbar. Overseers buzzed. Is the human insane? She faced plasma. Forged champions with junk. She grinned. Darting in. She hooked the crowbar into a shield core and twisted with mechanics precision. The field collapsed, leaving its bearer struck down by his own allies. She used their weapons against them, turning pride into downfall. When the last soldier fell, the fortress trembled. Kneeling, core exposed. Carrera climbed the wreckage, boot pressing the pulsing heart. She wasn't supposed to win yet. She lifted her hand like a laborer, signaling job done. Overseers hissed. Their warning had failed. One challenge ended, and the human was only warming up. The second trial awakened before she could rest. Not a fortress this time, but a worm vast and endless, a recreation of the Dominion's proudest conquest. The fall of the Hellion expanse. Armadas filled the void, walls of dreadnoughts and fire. Overseers thundered. No human fleet survived this. Do not waste your life. Carrera wiped grime from her cheek. Fleet. I don't need one. She climbed into a rusted shuttle, its engines wheezing, its targeting system half dead. Still she strapped in. Sirens shrieked as Dominion ships aimed weapons. Carrera slammed her palm against controls. The shuttle lurched forward. Instead of assaulting warships, she dove beneath formation lines, weaving between blasts that seared her hull. Admirals scoffed until they realized she wasn't firing at. She chased faint signals, command relays hidden in armor. Her shuttle spat mines patched with tape and explosives. One relay burst, then another. Dominion ranks crumbled, commands broken, massive ships colliding in confusion. Overseers yelled across channels, demanding the simulation recalc. Carrara's shuttle danced through chaos, severing chain after chain until the mighty wall of steel shredded into drifting wreckage. Alone in her cracked vessel, she laughed. You warned me, overseers. You should have warned yourselves. The trials were meant to break every candidate, but she was rewriting what the galaxy believed. Overseers exchanged frantic signals. The human reached the last test. The Dominion's rule itself might fracture. Carrara dusted her gloves, waiting. For her, this was never about survival. Was about proving humans, with their odd blend of wit and stubborn fire, were not challengers but victors waiting to be acknowledged. The overseers gathered in their high chamber, their bodies glowing with ancient authority. For the first time in centuries they argued. No alien warrior had ever forced debate. But certainty was broken. Carrara stood on the platform, helmet tucked under her arm as the chamber reshaped into the third arena. She leaned forward with a smirk, as if expecting the next punchline. Voices of the overseers echoed together. The third test is choice, or wisdom. Fight for power or solve what no mind has solved. Carrara tilted her head. You really think those are separate? The arena formed a wasteland littered with ruined ships, engines half buried in sand. Above shimmered a web of equations, endless fractals sprawling like riddles across the sky. Starpath twisted into puzzles that crippled empires. The overseers declared, "This is the maze of continuum." Armies had bled against it. Scholars wasted lifetimes unraveling it. One way through was blood. One way was intellect. Neither belonged to humans. Carrara knelt beside a broken engine, tracing burns with her fingers. You overthink. That's your weakness. You expect grand keys. Sometimes doors open with a paperclip. She stripped wires, rerouted circuits, built a signal booster from ruin. Her scheme was madness. Instead of solving equations or blasting through, she meant to trick the maze into believing it was already conquered. Overseers whispered in silence, unsure whether to halt her. Her patch device hummed, pulsing against the alien grid. The maze flickered. Stars rearranged. Gap tore open in the lattice. Carrara rose, dusting her palms. See, the maze only needed a lie clever enough to believe. Overseers hissed in outrage. No empire had dared count deception as victory. To them, honor meant brute force or vast intellect. For Carrara, victory meant survival, no matter how absurd the method. The whole ruptured suddenly, birthing guardians of pure radiance, older than the Dominion itself. They roared in chorus, wings of light unfurling across the arena. Kara narrowed her eyes. Finally, something dramatic. I was starting to get bored. She charged with nothing but her crowbar. Overseers expected instant annihilation, yet she turned their brilliance against them, angling shards of mirrored plating so beams rebounded into the guardians. They stumbled, blinded by their own glow. She vaulted onto one's back, crowbar wrenching into a wing joint until the being scattered into sparks. Another lunged. Kara rolled through dust, activating the booster she'd built. Its pulse bent the guardian's senses, tricking them into chasing illusions. One after another dissolved, not by force or intellect, but by a kind of resourcefulness alien minds had dismissed as foolish. The overseers whispered uneasily. This was the point where humans should have failed, where their species should have hit the wall. Yet Kara treated limits like chalk lines. The fourth trial erupted without warning. A Dominion fleet appeared in full, engines blazing, weapons armed. An impossible task for a single pilot. Kara's battered shuttle materialized before them. She whistled. That's a lot of overcompensation. Instead of striking head-on, she dove into the wreck fields nearby, scavenging as she flew. Fuel cells, drones, broken plating, all lashed into crude explosives. As the fleet tightened formation, Kara streaked through their ranks, weaving between plasma fire and dropping charges like breadcrumbs. Explosions rippled in chains, warships slamming into each other. A cruiser cornered her path, but she hooked beneath its belly, scraping sparks into vents until the giant tore itself apart. Overseers reeled in disbelief. Humans weren't meant to improvise victories where equations predicted failure. Yet there she was, grinning through smoke while dreadnoughts split apart. When the last vessel broke open, Kara's shuttle spun out of the firestorm, scorched, barely intact but alive. She wiped sweat from her brow. You build fleets like palaces. Beautiful, but one bad screw and down they go. The chamber fell silent. The Dominion's prestige was built on trials like these, trials humans were never supposed to enter. Yet Kara had toppled each one. Still the sequence could not halt. The void darkened, revealing a colossal memory, summoned from the Overseer's archives. The Titan of Targus, a living weapon forged to crush uprisings, a creature that devoured fleets. Scales gleamed like forged suns, eyes burning storms. Overseers announced with solemn force. Final prelude. Survive the Titan. Kara cracked her knuckles. Finally a boss fight. Took you long enough. The Titan's roar shook constellations, and Kara charged, crowbar raised. Humanity's strangest weapon was never its fleets. It was reckless creativity laughing at the impossible. The Titan descended like a storm incarnate, every step collapsing ground into fire. Overseers leaned forward in fearful silence. This wasn't a trial. It was their reminder of dominion. No species had ever stood. Kara gripped her crowbar tighter and laughed as if the galaxy itself had told a bad joke. You think bigger means better? Let's test that. The Titan hurled a beam wide enough to vaporize an armada. Kara dove into wreckage, bounding shard to shard like a scavenger in a scrapyard. The Titan's swing shattered towers into glowing dust, yet Kara scrambled through debris, searching, until her eyes caught glowing veins across its chest, channels feeding its core. Everything's got an off switch, she muttered. She scavenged again, fusing circuits from dead drones into her broken booster. Sparks burned her gloves. Smoke stung her lungs. But she forced the machine alive. The Titan roared, another wave scorching the horizon. Kara launched forward, thrust a pack strapped from stolen fuel cells, slamming onto its chest. Heat seared her armor. Metal blistered her skin. She clamped the booster into the conduit and jammed her crowbar down. Energy roared like a hurricane. The Titan convulsed, claws tearing at itself as feedback ripped through its body. Overseers shrieked, but too late. The monster staggered, fell, and detonated into fragments of light that rained across the void. Silence smothered the chamber. No model accounted for this. Kara had broken their final defense. Panting, armor scorched, she raised her crowbar like a flag. That it. Because I've got more time if you do. The chamber dissolved, their authority cracking. Dominion power was built on invincibility. Now the myth lay in ruin. Overseers tried to speak, their voices faltering, some vanishing in shame. Kara stood alone on the platform as reality reasserted itself. Beyond, stars burned like witnesses. For generations, humans had been dismissed as fragile nomads destined to fade. Now they had a champion who turned every wall into a door. Delegates of other empires watched in stunned silence. Dominion authority had ruled millennia, yet Kara's victories seeded whispers. If one human could do this, what could their kind achieve united? Overseers scrambled to save face. Human, they declared, voices strained. You have finished the final test. But your kind cannot threaten the Dominion. Carrera smirked, resting her crowbar on her shoulder. You already look threatened. She turned her back on them, leaving without permission. Overseers shouted, but their words rang hollow. Across the stars, rebellion stirred. Colonies and empires inspired by one human dismantling illusions of supremacy. Back on Earth, when the broadcast reached the colonies, people erupted with pride. Children reenacted her crowbar strike with sticks. Soldiers painted her emblem on armor. Engineers printed her face on consoles. Humanity had not only endured the trials, they had turned them into legend. The Dominion scrambled to unleash fleets toward Earth, but the galaxy had already changed. Races once sworn to the Overseers refused to march in their crusade. Fleets splintered, uprisings erupted, and systems proclaimed independence. Dominions collapsed, their hold disintegrating faster than any tyrant imagined. And amid the chaos, Kara returned in her scarred vessel, greeted not as a stray survivor but as the spark of resistance. Human squadrons stitched together from rusted hulls and patched drives gathered beneath her banner. Species that once scorned mankind now extended alliances. Worlds rose to fight, not only against tyranny but for the belief that unbreakable walls could shatter. Wars stormed across constellations. Dominion bastions toppled to tactics so unorthodox that even the Overseers faltered. Humans forged their foes' pride into weapons, their fortresses into graves. Kara grew beyond captaincy. She became the legend, itself a living truth that endurance was triumph and ingenuity the sharpest blade. At last, after years of flame and defiance, the Overseer citadel burned. Their vaults, their thrones, their cruel designs, all scattered into fragments, drifting in the void. The Dominion that once chained galaxies ended not with triumph but with silence, as if memory itself discarded them. Kara stood among the wreckage, crowbar still at her side. She lifted her gaze to stars now free of masters and let out one weary laugh. Told you I love impossible things. The galaxy listened. From then on, children born under liberated skies carried her legend. The Overseers had delivered a threat, yet it was humanity that faced the final trial. And humanity had not just endured, they had remade the very essence of victory.